Someone make it make sense.
Probably a couple.
Hey guys, so couple things real quick. So I just was pulling up the court feed just to have it open because we're going to be doing all these streams like back to back, and something really interesting was happening, and I wanted to watch this for a second because basically there's a hot mic. The camera person doesn't realize, I don't think, that they are being heard, and I don't know that this will stay up on here. So anyway, I just wanted to play some of this. This is like just happened.
While they're suffering, okay?
These are the
and this
camera
is all
people.
thrown out the window, and nobody's talking about it. And then you had in 2002, you had if you go onto my website and you go to the activism page, you're going to see Arizona Republic. It said this whole system has failed. Graphic stories of patients being raped and beaten by other violently mentally ill patients and by staff. A series of stories.
There was just a recent two.
Different person.
No, there was just a depiction of a person that had killed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, when those stories came out, you know what our elected officials did? Nothing. There was no town hall meetings. There was no public.
I would say these people have no idea that they're being heard.
Talk about it because it says
welcome, Happy Annie.
So the fault goes with everybody. Okay, and they don't want. Nobody wants to take accountability. Okay, so then you have in 2002, the audit general did an audit of our health services. It was uncovered in that audit that they downgraded, dismissed without any investigation hundreds and hundreds of very serious complaints of sexual and physical abuse. Hundreds and downgraded, dismissed without any investigation. I want you to imagine if you hire a painting crew to do your house, they come whenever they want to a half-assed job. Not only that, they tie you and your family up, put you in a closet and rob you. Not only that, when the police come, they do an investigation that's downgraded, dismissed without any investigation. Not only that, you're required to pay the painting crew. That's our healthcare in Arizona, and we're next.
So yeah, so this is, I just wanted to show you guys because again, this is like, let's see where they're at live. We're still going.
They go, hey, these patients are not receiving same protection.
Okay, so basically, what I'm going to do is just, as usual, mute this and then keep it running in the background on live. So, but what I wanted to point out is this. So for anyone who's like freaking out because it's like, wait, what? Because we're going to miss stuff now. So see what it says here. Court begins around 2 p.m. Now remember, there's a half an hour delay. Now that's 2 p.m. my time. So this is nice. This makes it easy. So there's a half an hour delay. So that really means 2:30. What they're going to have is they're going to have an hour of jury instructions, and then they're going to break for lunch for an hour, and then they're going to come back for closing arguments. So at 2:30, which is still 45 minutes from now, if they start on time, they'll have the jury instructions, then they'll have lunch, then they'll have closing arguments. So closing arguments would be slated then for 4:30 my time, including with the delay. So that's why I have that stream scheduled for 3:30, because what we're going to do is we're going to continue with Lori's Inner Circle. We're going to be smart about it. And then we're going to pop over. We're going to watch jury instructions, skip the lunch break, and go straight into closing arguments. So that way, the idea is that we will be in real time for closing arguments, and we can watch the jury instructions on like 1.25 speed, skip the lunch break. So does that make sense? So I don't want anyone to think that like I put a lot of thought into this and making sure that we can do all the things in an efficient manner where we're not just like twiddling our thumbs and whatnot. Anyway, but I know that's what it looks like now. I just wanted to show you guys what's happening because they're still doing it. I'm surprised nobody said something to them. Anyway. Okay, but we are here for more of Lori's Inner Circle. So we're going to start out strong with Julie Rowe relatedness. We are going to start with this is a song, a music video. This is let me share this. The Wasatch Wake Up earthquake. Now, Wasatch Wake Up, remember we watched her interview last night with Nadine. She says she coined this term, although Wasatch was a town long before she coined. I mean, obviously, but she still does this Wasatch Wake Up, right? And in fact, apparently today she even had one of her I don't know if it's happened already, one of her healing sessions, and she had still people could sign up. So without further ado, I present to you this music video made by Julie Rowe, or hired people were hired. I don't know. Okay. My guess is he kind of remembered trying to scare people about the end of the world so they buy her tents.
Oh, rise, can you feel the fire? Rising up higher, higher, higher. When we hear the trumpet sound and the four winds blow, we will be the ones found, looking up, ready to go. In the twinkling of an eye, we will be raised high. Every heart beating in time.
So it's just earthquake. What the heck?
Revive, revive, breathe the breath of life, let it feel
Wow, people burning masks. Interesting. Not surprising to me.
you with power, power.
Wow,
Power.
wow. Wow.
Revive, revive, hear his voice, be wise, ready for the final hour, hour,
What do you mean?
hour. When we hear the trumpet sound and the four winds blow, we will be the ones found, looking up, ready to go. In the twinkling of an eye, we will be raised high. Every heart beating in time, our life. Awake, awake, to be shine. Open your eyes, it's time to rise and shine. Yeah. Awake, awake, to be shine. Open your eyes, it's time. Your bones come alive. Holy, holy is the one who was and is to come. Holy, 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 holy is the one who was.
I mean, it's an interesting juxtaposition, isn't it, though? Going from like whatever the fuck we were just seeing to like this business.
And is to come. Holy.
Also, I will say, if that's supposed to be Christ on the left, it looks very effeminate, right? In this, like with the eyes. You know, it is interesting how there's different art that portrays Christ in all these different ways, as we know. Then you have Jeff. That's a whole other thing. But anywho, this is an especially, and look at the hands. Even the hands are almost identical. Interesting.
Holy. And when we hear that trumpet sound and the four winds blow, we will be the ones found, looking up, ready to go. In the twinkling of an eye, we will be raised high. Every heart beating in time.
Okay. I think we get the idea. Now here's the thing. So last night we watched Julie Rowe's interview with Nate Eaton. It was really, 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 really fascinating. Something I actually wouldn't mind watching again. It was a lot. It was a lot. It was actually, I mean, I knew it was going to be a lot, but it was like even more than what I thought. And we've also discovered kind of similarly to Twin Flames, so maybe not quite as prolific, but you know, she's still got a YouTube channel and she's still got stuff, and I've got all kinds of stuff pulled up. Anyway, so she's still doing her thing. Anywho, but we're going to take a brief pause from Julie Rowe and we're going to pop on over to Melanie Gibb. And for anyone who missed it last night, we did watch Chad's, but it's audio only, but Chad's speech that he gave the day he met Lori. And I also posted that as just its own video as well for anyone that just wants to be able to watch that on its own. As well as we also watched last night Chad giving an interview at like some weird antique place about his books from like 2011. But anywho, right now we're going to jump over to Melanie Gibb's interview with Nate Eaton. It'll be interesting to see how this is handled, how Nate handles it compared to Julie Rowe. Melanie and Julie are quite different. Anyway, okay, let's just jump around it.
I've been waiting 5 months to talk to you, and you've been hard to find.
I know.
Would it be fair to say that you've been in hiding?
Yes.
Why?
When you realize that the people that you know and you're close to and love have been involved in something that has to do with kidnapping and people dying, you start to think, oh my gosh, are they going to come after me? Like, everything closes in. And
wow. So that's not the answer I expected. I think I've seen this, but maybe I've only seen parts of it, and it was a while ago. By the way, this is from May 31st of 2020. So this is still before they found the kids. This is still before they found the kids. But this is just not the answer I expected from this. Hold on.
and you're close to in love have been involved in something that has to do with kidnapping and people dying.
Yeah, kidnapping. Okay, and people dying. So she's people dying there. She means probably Charles and Tammy. She doesn't know about the kids. But this is not the answer I expected.
You start to think, oh my gosh, are they going to come after me? Like, everything.
Are they going to come after me? Like, what a weird. Do you guys see what is that weird to you guys? Like, her first thing is like, are they going to come after me?
Closes in.
Oh, hold on. I need to put a thing up. I don't want to get. Why does it say Dateline? This is from East Idaho News. I swear. Hold on. I don't know. Let me just. I don't know. I don't think this is going to be here the whole time because, I mean, this is the thing. Dateline's been doing this. They did this with Court TV, and now they're doing this with Idaho News. They're trying to just claim everything as their own. Hopefully that doesn't stay like that.
And
frustrating.
You start to think about your own safety, and you start to think about what really happened, and could this really be true? I had all kinds of fears. What the media would say about me, if they would say it the way I want to say it, like I'm saying it now. I wasn't ready.
So why are you ready today?
Because I faced all the fears, and then I decided that the truth was more important than what I wanted. And I needed to do it for those that have passed on, that justice may be served. I think it's fair to Charles and JJ and Tammy and Tylee that someone is standing up for what happened to them. And I care. I do care for them. And I care for the families that are involved.
And is that your goal in talking today?
My goal is to speak to the things that have gone on, and also to speak to many that believe their story of some of the things we're going to talk about zombies, to being part of the 144,000, to multiple probations. These things do need to be discussed to those that do follow those teachings. And so I have a lot of perspective on that.
Would it be fair to say you know Chad and Lori better than anybody?
Probably.
Yeah.
And you know their
I would say that's true. And that's why she's a very valuable witness to all this.
Beliefs.
Yep.
You know their activities. You know more about this story probably than anybody else other than them.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so.
Crazy.
You told me the other day on the phone that someone told you needed to get an attorney. And what was your response when they said, have you gotten an attorney?
Well, how I responded to you is why do I need an attorney if I'm telling the truth? God is on my side.
So let's go back a few years and talk about Chad Daybell.
I was going to say that as a joke. Okay, y'all know how I feel. I will always get an attorney, right? Speaking of which, hold on. Speaking of which, this.
Just because somebody pleads the fifth, just because somebody doesn't talk to cops, just because somebody hires a lawyer, does not mean they're guilty.
So y'all know how I feel about this, right? Like, nothing wrong with getting an attorney. But my immediate thought before she answered this question was this as a joke. Hold on. Right here.
That someone told you needed to get an attorney. And what was your response when they said, have you gotten an attorney?
Literally in my head, I was like thinking, she doesn't need an attorney. She has Jesus on her side. I was just thinking that as a joke because, like, you should have an attorney, but like that's what I was thinking as a joke.
Well, how I responded to you is why do I need an attorney if I'm telling the truth? God is on my side.
Literally.
So let's go back a few years and talk about Chad Daybell.
Okay.
How did you meet Chad?
The first time I met him, he was at a conference or an event speaking about his last.
Clearly, her understanding of an attorney is only if you're guilty, you do need an attorney. So sad, right?
Days, dreams, and visions. And I just walked up to him and introduced myself to him.
Was that in Rexburg?
I think the first time I met him might have been at a camp up in Ogden, I think. Somewhere in that area.
In northern Utah.
Northern Utah.
Were you impressed by what he had said there at the conference? Is that why you wanted to talk to him, or was it just a casual,
wow,
good job?
I wanted to meet him because I thought his dreams were interesting. And so And when I met him, I thought he was a really nice guy. And anytime I saw him was at an event.
At what point did you
Now,
become
again, we
closer?
have a lot more context to this because we've seen him in that one interview we watched last night. And then we also got to hear that speech again from the day he met Lori. But this is all very close in proximity in time, right? This is, in other words, Chad's speaking at these different conferences and events are probably very much the same. He talks about his books for like 30 minutes and then he talks about whatever other bullshit. And so when she says whatever she says about Chad, like, yeah, I thought he was interesting. I thought his stories were interesting. I wanted to meet him, blah, blah. We have an understanding for what she heard that made her think that, which is fascinating also.
Than just seeing him at events or, hearing him speak?
So when Lori and him met, that's when I started to get to know a little bit more.
Tell me how you met Lori.
So I was teaching a class at church one evening, and she was there, and she introduced herself to me.
And what was that encounter like?
She was very excited to hear the things I was teaching. And so when I went out to the hallway, she came up to me and introduced herself. And she told me about a lot of personal experiences that she had that were spiritual in nature. And we just hit it off.
So from there, a friendship developed.
Yeah.
And what was that relationship like?
Wow.
In the beginning,
yeah.
What was it like?
So we talked often about our experiences that we had spiritually. And we talked about some of our trials that we've overcome. And we talked a lot about the second coming as well and how excited we are for the things that we've been studying and learning. And so just a lot of interest in that area. Mm-hmm. And we just talked about life and being a mom and, JJ being a handful, being autistic and what that was like. And, we just talked about our life.
Do you remember what year that was, Melanie, when you met her?
Yeah, that was 2018, about October.
October of 2018. Mm-hmm. So you saw JJ, you saw Tylee, you knew that
Absolutely.
She was raising the kids.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And at what point did she meet Chad? Because you knew Chad and you knew Lori, but they were separate relationships.
Correct. So I met her first. Well, I met him, like within years, but didn't know him super close or anything like that. So then I meet her, and then her and I decided that we're going to go to an event in St. George. And so we drove down together.
St. George, that's the preparing. That's literally, we watched this last night, guys. That's the preparing people in St. George.
And then he was selling his books and speaking. And so that's when I got to meet. So that was
wow. That is literally, it's so crazy, right? Because we literally have a context for that. He was selling, we've always heard these stories. Like he was selling his books and speaking. We literally heard the whole thing. And he literally talks about his books. And it's like literally Lori hears him talk about his books at this. We heard it ourselves. And she goes up to him at the little table and she's like, oh, you sell your stupid books. And that's how it starts.
Probably October, November, somewhere in that time frame of the same year.
2018.
Mm-hmm.
So did you introduce them?
I don't know if I did or she just went up to the table. I can't recall.
And was there anything unusual or magical or different about when they met?
So we were there for 2 or 3 days, and I think he was there for 2 days. And she talked to him a lot about his books. And so she asked a lot of questions, and she was very interested in what he thought, and she was interested in what she knew. And so they just started talking about these different beliefs that generally are not something you learn in church. And so they started kind of develop that connection right there. Mm-hmm.
And were you kind of intergrained with all of it right there as they're talking about these things?
I am going in and out, and I'm not sure exactly all the things they're saying.
I see.
Yeah.
But it wasn't anything unusual. It would be if you found somebody at the church that had similar beliefs and you were talking about things, or was it a step further?
It was a step further. It was discussing the things that were not something you would talk at church. It was something that you would talk closely with not a lot of people listening.
Interesting that she says that, right? Remember, a lot of these folks ended up being excommunicated, right? I will just say also, I really just on a personal level hope that Melanie Gibb gives another interview after these trials are finished in Arizona, because I don't think she's done an interview recently, and I kind of makes sense, right? Because it's not the best idea to be giving interviews surrounding a trial if you're expected to testify. Now, again, it was surprising to me that Melanie Gibb was not called for the Arizona trial here for Lori. I don't know what the deal will be for Brandon Boudreaux, the attempted murder trial, but anyway, I don't know if she's just laying low. I wouldn't blame her, but I do hope that she speaks out because, again, this is from 2020. And then, of course, she did testify in Lori and Chad's trials in Idaho, but her perspective, I would imagine, is probably going to be different as time goes on. Even since Lori and Chad's trials, right? That was 2023. So even from then to now, it's been 2 years. So I would imagine she's probably she'll probably have some new things to say. You know what I mean? Twiz is back. Welcome, Twiz. Twiz was here for movie night. By the way, I'm thinking tonight what we might do after the members only is we might do not movie night, but TV show night in the Discord, and not be movie style, but we're going to do, we've talked about it before. I'm thinking Curb Your Enthusiasm, you know, the TV show, HBO. And that way it's just like short episodes, and we can just sort of, you know, if you miss one, there's no through line, so you can just kind of jump in. And anyway, I just was thinking about that for potentially for after the members only live stream tonight. We might watch some of that in the Discord. But anyway, yes.
It wasn't anything unusual. It would be if you found somebody at the church that had similar beliefs and you were talking about things, or was it a step further?
It was a step further. It was discussing the things that were not something you would talk at church. It was something.
This is so interesting. This is so interesting. This is what she says then. Imagine what it would say now. What she'd say now.
Found somebody at the church that had similar beliefs and you were talking about things, or was it a step further?
It was a step further.
It
was discussing the things that were not something you would talk at church. It was something that you would talk closely with not a lot of people listening.
I mean, read between the lines on that one, right? That's terrifying.
Did you know that Chad had a wife and 5 kids in Rexburg?
Mm-hmm.
And did Lori know that?
Yes.
And was Tammy ever with Chad?
No.
She didn't come with him to the events?
No.
And did his children?
Not that I know of.
Okay. So where did their relationship go from there?
So after spending much time talking those 2 days, we went back to Arizona, and he came down to Arizona when it was the next event, which was in November sometime. And so many people, so some of my friends, some of Lori's friends, and then Chad, all got to stay in her house. It was one of the larger houses she had, so she had plenty of room throughout her house. And so they spent some time talking, and he spent some time talking to us as well.
Everybody stayed in this house.
That's right.
Chad, Lori, you. Was Charles there?
No, he went out of town.
He was out of town.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have much interaction with Charles?
A little bit.
And what was that like?
So when I did interact,
So before she starts talking about Charles, I just want to know, it's going to be interesting, right? So because I've thought this through, right, with the time. And as far as, you know, closing arguments, again, they are going to be starting at around 4:30 my time when you include the half-hour delay. And so I would expect, my guess, I mean, Lori said she's only going to be half an hour. I mean, maybe an hour for the state, half an hour for Lori, and then half an hour. So maybe 2 hours, which is pretty quick, but it was a short trial. I can't imagine they would be much longer than that. So that puts it up to like 6:30 my time, maybe 7 max, right, for closing arguments. But again, at that point, we're still looking at what, 3-4 o'clock their time. The jury's going to go and deliberate, right? So that's what why I've been doing the math on this, because it's like, what did I say, 4:30, so 6:37. So if they start deliberating, say around 6:37 my time, then it might be, if they have a quick verdict, it might be like 8 o'clock, maybe, I don't know, or 9 o'clock my time, Eastern time, right? But that's still so early there, and then plus there's the half-hour delay. So by the time you think about, like, if they return a verdict today, and then by the time we get that in, and then they give everyone time before they come in and read the verdict. That's why you could be looking at the verdict not being said and done here, like on our time, until what, 9:30, 10, right? So anyway, I just wanted to point that out because it's an interesting time frame that we're working with compared to other cases. And so I don't know. I'm wondering, is Adam going to be on STS for the verdict watch? Because normally when they have their shows, it's like 7 o'clock-ish Eastern time, which would be around probably the time when the jury starts deliberating. Anyway, I don't know. But love STS, love Adam. And so my plan for Verdict Watch was to be on Verdict Watch and to continue deep diving into the twin, oh my God, the Lori's Inner Circle, right, for Verdict Watch. But anyway, so just wanted to point that out again. So
it was just like the first time I came over, I believe we did a barbecue, and he was cooking barbecue. That seemed something that he was good at, according to both of them. And there was swimming in the pool with the kids, and he seemed like just kind of a nice guy, just happy to see us, happy to meet us. I don't know. It was an enjoyable conversation. He was talking a little bit about his conversion to the church, and he seemed to be pretty excited about it.
How would you describe his and Lori's marriage?
There seemed to be some arguing often when I would see them together. So he was trying to do things to help her and please her. And she seemed like she was struggling to be happy by that. Like she seemed a little often frustrated with him. They had something going on that I didn't quite understand, but there seemed to be a lot of contention between the two of them.
Did you ever see him lose his temper or become irate or angry with Lori or the kids?
Nope.
Did you ever see her become upset or angry with Charles?
Like vocally, I could see her, being upset. And he was frustrated back. So he might have had a little bit of that stress in his voice when you argue. So I would say just that arguing kind of a upset voice,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he wasn't there at the house the day that you guys were all there for that conference.
Right.
The conference happens, and what happens from there with Chad and Lori?
They just spent time talking about things. They went on a walk together or jog in the morning together. I do recall that. All the things they talked about. It's like so personal. It's so hard to share with the world. You know what I mean?
So it was very personal details.
Some of it, he was teaching us about some of his understandings about multiple lives and things of that nature. But at that point, he had already shared with her when they met in St. George that they had been married multiple times before. So that was established when they first met.
Chad told Lori when they first met that they had been married before?
Not in this, right now in this earth life, but in multiple earth lives.
In a previous life.
Mm-hmm.
And did Lori have an issue with that?
No, she seemed to understand that teaching already, that she had learned already through podcasts. So it wasn't something that was
foreign.
Julie Rowe.
Foreign, right.
So Chad's teaching this group about multiple lives. Is that what it means? Multiple probations? Does that mean previous life?
That's right.
So he's talking about multiple probations. He and Lori had
Julie
been married
Rowe said
before.
last night, she was 600 years old, I think.
That's right.
And you all are
Pretty good for 600 years old.
Are discussing this. And is that when you decided to form a group? Is that?
No, there wasn't any group. It was just him talking to people individually. He wasn't even trying to express it like, hey, let's start a group. Nothing of that language.
What about the 144,000? Huh, Melanie?
So, a lot of people have different ideas about, is this a cult? Is this not a cult? And so we can talk about that a little bit later. But
yeah.
I have thoughts. I think Chad wanted it to be a cult, but it would never, in my mind, I don't think it had enough people to count. So
I would just say from the beginning, what it felt like to me, at least, is he was just talking to individuals, and he was very kind of private. And so he would talk to her, and then she would kind of share with us. So he wouldn't get too overly involved talking to us. She would just more share what he would teach her to us.
And was she the only person that he was doing this with?
No.
There were others.
Mm-hmm.
Other women?
Men and women. I knew of it already. Yeah.
And do you know, had he told other women that he had been married to them in previous probations?
I'm not sure about that.
But definitely he had told Lori that.
Right.
What was it like to witness this? I mean, did it seem like a normal relationship between the two of them, or did you think this might be going a little too far?
It was definitely different. The idea was definitely a new concept. I'm a very open person, so I don't necessarily think it's not true. And before I just listened to what they said. Did I 100% believe any of it ever? No, not 100%. No. So when you get introduced to something, you kind of just, let it marinate. And so I just listened to them talk about it. I mean, it was not something that.
Here's the thing. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, I understand why she's trying to be like, yeah, I'm like, dude, she's taken this same tone. We watched most, have we finished watching? Anyway, her law enforcement interviews, we've watched a lot of, right? And so, no, wait, we did watch all of them. Yes, we did. Okay. So, she takes this stance of like, yeah, I don't 100% believe anything and like, it strains credulity that, she's already admittedly said, this is stuff that was fringe stuff, right? She says, you talk about this when there's not a lot of people listening. If you wouldn't talk about it with the other church members, you would talk about it in private. It was stuff that was questionable, blah, blah. So so you say that, but you're also admittedly the person who's the closest person to them and knows more about this than anybody else apart from Chad and Lori. So that means you've been privy to countless of those conversations that are considered fringe and maybe questionable. If that's the case, why would you stick around? It just doesn't make any sense to listen to this for so long. Like, it just, I mean, I know, I'm sure it doesn't even really necessitate explaining, but it's just, she can't have it both ways. You know, you can't be the closest confidant and also not think that what they were saying was valid. Right? Or they would have called you dark. If she questioned any of it, they would have been calling her dark.
That I knew anything about until they shared it with me. So,
and not something that you had heard at church or in Sunday school or in a manual anywhere.
Never. Yeah, it does not represent our church's teachings at all.
Right.
So they're going on jogs together. He's talking about these multiple probations. The conference ends, and what happens from there?
So he goes back home, and I just know that they're communicating on the phone every single day. I do know that. You know, she would let me know. Yeah.
Did you ever think, she might be falling in love with him?
Well, yeah, I knew that they pretty much hit it off.
Did you wonder?
Hold on. There was a part where they did end up calling her dark. I'm trying to remember. I'm sure one of you guys will remember if they rated her dark at some point. I feel like they did when she started having more questions about the kids. But I mean, at that point, that was way into this, right? So she was with them for a long time before she started questioning things. And so anyway.
And she's married and he's married too, and they both have kids. Was that a thought you ever expressed to Lori?
Well, I did actually offer the idea. I'm like, why don't you just go ahead and get a divorce? And they were told that they weren't allowed to.
They weren't allowed to?
Yeah.
Because of church teachings or?
No, something that they received through the other side of the veil, how they would speak about it, and said, no, we're not allowed to do that.
So they received like a spiritual prompting or a revelation or
however he got his revelation.
However he got it.
Yeah.
Said, don't get a divorce.
Right. He wasn't allowed to, actually.
Was not allowed to get a divorce.
That's correct.
You said that it wasn't a group or a cult, but do you think it became that over time?
I guess it depends on what you believe those words mean. A lot of us don't understand what those words mean. I would say it's teachings that you have the basic tenets of the gospel of Jesus Christ that we do as Christians, right? And then you have this doctrine that comes in that's not affiliated with any Christianity that I've ever read of. And
so interesting.
It's not doctrine that
because Lori, dude, speaking of the relevant stuff for the Arizona trial, because Lori's whole thing was trying to find things that she could say were normal, right? Remember when she was talking to Sharina on the stand or cross-examining her and that whole thing, trying to be like, this is normal, this isn't this and that. I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, again, Arizona could have probably called her. I mean, I don't know that it was necessary, but I'm just pointing out that I am not a scholar when it comes to Christianity or Mormonism. But I just think that this testimony here from her, again, she's not testifying, but it could have been testimony. It totally counters what Lori the point she was trying to make in her trial just a few days ago. So
understand what those words mean. I would say it's teachings that you have the basic tenets of the gospel of Jesus Christ that we do as Christians, right? And then you have this doctrine that comes in that's not affiliated with any Christianity that I've ever read of. And it's not doctrine that comes from Jesus Christ. It comes from the adversary. And so that comes in and it's enticing because how many people do you hear even in the world that want to know about their future, right? Or they want to know their fortune or something like that. And so it's enticing. So you keep going more and more into it. And then you get more information and it gets you to ask questions that you shouldn't be asking. And then you learn these kind of things. And so you can call that what you want. I mean, I didn't see him forming any groups per se. Preparing people is not a cult. They're people, very nice people that have an event they hold and they have different speakers. He just happened to be one of them. And they had no idea that he had these belief systems, nor did he know anything, nor did they know anything about Chad and Lori's relationship. They had no idea.
Yeah, so that was going on separate from the mainstream church and preparing of people. It was this little thing.
Yeah.
Would you say that you got sucked into it?
Yeah.
Or brainwashed?
I don't know if the brainwash word is, I would say sucked into it. I don't know if you would call it a brainwash or not.
How often would you meet? Would you actually meet together? Or was this more done on the phone or on email or Facebook?
It wasn't anything that was planned. So I just spent a lot of time with Lori. So we spent every day together for a period of time, actually, especially when she left Charles that first time. Oh, it seemed like it was every day. It was close to every day. Well, a lot of time together for at least a few months, and then it kind of spread out a little bit. I talked to her a lot personally because she was with me a lot, and he talked to her, but I didn't talk to him very often. Just occasionally.
So
when I
you
get a
call
chance.
her, and because you were with her so much, you
Yeah.
knew what they were talking about.
Right, yeah, exactly.
How did you meet Alex and Zulema and Melanie?
I met Alex for the first time at Lori's house. He often came over to visit, and I think Melanie too. I met her at her house, and then Zulema I met at church.
Okay, so Melanie and Alex would come to the house while you were there with Lori, and
Mhm.
what was that interaction like? What was that relationship like?
It was kind of fun and enjoyable. Alex was fun, and he was a comedian kind of guy, and we just talk about all kinds of stuff. Sometimes spiritual stuff, sometimes non-spiritual stuff. It was in the beginning, it was just more casual because Alex at this point didn't know anything about that until later on.
Would you say that Chad and Lori were kind of leaders, or at least they were working their way to be leaders of a group, of other people that might follow their teachings?
So ultimately, yes, they did believe that they were the head of the 144,000.
Right. There it is.
So,
Thank you.
that's scriptural. That word is scriptural, right? But they believed that was what their assignment was. So I guess in some sense, you could say that they were trying to find people that would fit that group individually.
And all along, they're going to church every Sunday.
To a point, and then she just stopped going after a while. After she felt that Charles was kind of chasing her with the papers to be signed for divorce, she kept running, and so I don't think she went to church. So she hadn't gone to church in a long time, and if she did go, it was very rare.
But you were going.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Have you?
I mean, Lori, why do you need to go to church though when you are the church? So reminiscent of Jeff and Schleer, right? Also, I do have a new one of these clippy things that we can have at our disposal.
You also told them that you thought you heard a wildcat, but maybe it was a person or something like that as well?
No, that's not what I said.
What did you say then?
I said when I went outside that there's a house cat that's gone wild, and he hangs around. He goes from hanging around the shop, goes from hanging around the house different times. You might, and there'll be times you don't see him. And he had been around the house. And when I went outside, I believe that cat was over there.
The shape-shifting wildcat. Shout out to the shape-shifting wildcat. I also have a little audio clip. I'll show you guys that later. So.
You heard anything about burner phones, 60 burner phones being used to communicate, or
I don't know that word, burner.
It's like a
What?
prepaid phone that you can go down to 7-Eleven and buy a phone and put 400 minutes on it, and then once it's done, you can get another one. It's not like you have a cell phone plan or anything. Did Laura use a lot of those type of devices?
Well, I know that she had about 3 phones, but they seem to be the same phones. So if she did those and threw them away, I don't know about that.
Is that true?
But
You can buy them at the gas station. I don't even know that would know. Okay, if that's true, obviously I feel like anybody has probably seen them. I'm just like, I don't know that I would even know what they look like because I feel like I've never if I don't even know what a burner phone looks like. But like I know what it is, obviously. But like I didn't realize you could get them at a 7-Eleven, or like, is that how prevalent they are? I guess I always pictured you had to go to the burner phone store. I don't even know what I thought where you would buy those, but Walmart maybe? I don't know. Anyone know? Where do you get those and what do they look like? They look like normal phones? Are they at the gas station? Crazy.
She had 3 phones and was getting calls on all of them.
Yeah, it was hard to track her at times. You didn't know which phone she was going to pick up.
Why did she need so many phones?
Yeah.
Well, she had one special phone that her and Chad would communicate
One special phone.
with, and he had a special phone outside of his cell phone number. So it was just for their personal communication.
So one specific phone for Chad and Lori to communicate with.
Yeah.
And why could they not communicate on their normal phone?
I guess in case somebody picked it up and saw their conversations.
Why do you think
Right.
they were so secretive?
When you go to church in the temple, there's certain questions they ask you to see if your belief systems are consistent with the doctrine. And they were inconsistent. And so that's the reason you're going to be secret about it, because, you think you know something more than they do. That at least that's, what was introduced is this idea we know more. So if that got out, people would think you were unusual or weird in the church, right? And then they would say, hey, I don't think that you're allowed to go into the temple because of these teachings. So you're going to keep that secret, right?
Latter-day Saints need, if they want to go and worship at the temple, they need to go see their religious leaders, their clergy, every 2 years and get a recommend that allows you to go into the temple. But you have to be living certain standards. And you're saying Chad and Lori clearly were not living those standards, or at least following the doctrines being taught.
Correct.
Wow.
But they were still going to the temple.
Oh, yeah. That was her favorite place to go. So she did actually go to the temple, but maybe not to church.
She'd go to the temple, but not to church.
Yeah.
So
which
did
is
you
odd.
know that their teachings weren't in line with the mainstream?
Yeah.
And did you talk with her about it?
Yeah.
And what was the reaction?
Well, when she taught me, she was leading me to believe they were true. So I didn't, there would be times where I'm like, do you think that's a good idea? Or do you think this is, those kind of thoughts? But I just kind of didn't voice a much opposition to it, but just more listened, just more listened.
Was there ever a time where you thought, whoa, this is too...
I mean, it just strains credulity, right? You were with her every day for months. This is what she literally just said. Like, you're with her every day for months, and you're going to say that you never weighed in on any of this. You just listened. Are you kidding me? When you've already, again, said these are fringe teachings. These are not within the LDS doctrine. These would get you kicked out of the church. I mean, dude.
Too much. This crosses the line.
Well, I always thought this is a little unusual, especially, we'll get in talking about later about the zombie thing, but that was definitely unusual. That was hard to completely believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite unusual.
Did you feel, or did they make you feel special or chosen as they're teaching you these things, that you are one of the elect and you need to be with us?
Yep.
And how did that make you feel?
First, I thought it was me. Who, me? Right. So first you have that feeling of, I don't feel like that's something, because I didn't get that personally from God, so I thought it was unusual. So she kind of had to keep talking me into it. That makes sense. Like, you really are, you need to believe this, and with much enthusiasm.
How did Lori describe your relationship with her?
I would say she would call me a best friend or either a really good friend.
I think she was flattered. I think they complimented her. They made her feel special. I think she was flattered. That's fine.
And you all knew each other in previous lives.
Well, she claimed that we did, but I have no memory of that.
They obviously made you feel very special, made you feel like you were elect, that you were chosen.
Mm-hmm.
And as things progressed, did you gradually come to really believe that and say, yeah, I am one of the chosen ones?
To some level, not 100%, but to some level. Mm-hmm.
Were their beliefs and this belief system written down or recorded in any way?
Yeah. There was paperwork that showed all the 12 apostles to the Old Testament apostles, prophets, people in their the friends that they knew currently, to maybe some movie stars or people just in general. They had maybe 4 pages. I don't know how many pages.
I feel like those have never surfaced. Does anybody know? I don't think those have surfaced. Where are they?
And that was created by Chad, and he would say, well, these are who they are. This is what lives they live. This is how many times they've been on. So yes, it was a whole document. It was a whole plan. I mean, they would write down on paper, like, this is how many lives, this is what it needs to get to this level. You need to go to this many. I mean, it was quite the plan, if that makes sense. It was quite the detailed list. I mean, it was, and I know that Charles was aware of it because he sent it out to a lot of people.
So Chad came up with all of this on his own?
That I know of. I don't know if he got it from anywhere else. I've never heard that before.
And movie stars were on it?
I think so, or either he told us personally. I didn't look at the whole list, so I can't say. I just kind of browsed it a little bit because I didn't feel like it was for me to look at.
Yeah.
So I kind of skimmed it
What the fuck? And where is this list?
a little bit. So
Can you tell me about Chad and Lori sealing themselves in the temple to each other? And for those people that aren't familiar, couples will go to the temple and be married and sealed together, meaning they believe that the relationship will continue after this life ends. Did Chad and Lori talk about what they were doing in the temple together, which would be against church policy and procedure?
right. Chad didn't tell me, but Lori did.
What did she tell you?
And she just told me they went together and they felt that they were sealed by those on the other side of the veil that had the authority to do that.
So they were in the temple together when this happened,
Right.
yet she's
That's
still
right.
married to Charles and he's still married to Tammy.
Correct.
Wow.
And when you would raise this with them, that, hey, you're still married, what was their reaction, or at least Lori's, because I'm sure you never had a chance to talk to Chad
Right.
about it.
She said that it was okay that they did this because they had been married so many times before that their spouses would understand someday.
Lori, from what I understand, said that she has been on 21 planets and Chad has been on 31. Have you heard that before?
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say planets, but I would just say lives.
lives.
Mhm.
So she's had 21 lives
Mhm.
and he's had 31.
Mhm.
That he was a holy ghost and has had 5 lives on this earth and she's had 4 lives.
Correct.
And
Well, no, I think she had 5 lives on this earth.
she had 5 lives on this. They both had 5 lives on this earth.
I believe so.
And Chad made a portal in Lori's closet so she can visit him.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Thank you.
That sounds kind of crazy, I'll be honest.
It does sound crazy. So a portal is something that he created for her. I don't know exactly how he did it, but maybe
Like a box?
no, it's just a spot where he just maybe said a prayer or however words he uses to create this portal. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there. I don't know.
Sure.
But it's not like he could come through it physically, but it was a way for them to interact spiritually.
I see.
Yeah.
So it was a sacred area where if she wanted to connect with him, she could go sit and then they would have a connection. What do you think about that?
I thought it was different. I thought, how do you do that? Like, do you have to have some special skills to do that? I didn't understand how people could do that, but I don't know. It was pretty extreme, but to me, everything was new. And I just thought, well, these people know things that I don't know about this stuff. So
I was looking for this. I remember I timestamped this from Melanie Gibb's first law enforcement interview, at least of the ones that are, that we can watch that are on video. As far as this whole thing of who was the leader between Chad and Lori and who's the real person, this whole thing. And I have to just say, it's towards the end of Melanie's interview, her first interview with law enforcement there, I have the time stamped because I thought this was so important what she says. And so I was just pulling that timestamp up. She says, so Detective Duncan asks her point blank what she thinks the motive was. And then after that, she keeps, as she's elaborating, I have it in quotes. She says, they tricked each other so well. And I thought that was very interesting because, again, this is the person who was the closest to them. And clearly her interpretation, like when you listen to Lori's family and stuff, they clearly think that Lori changed when Chad got involved. And I know there's a lot of people that think that. And I'm sure Chad's family would say the same thing. But Melanie is putting equal responsibility on both of them, essentially saying they trick. I mean, we're not even talking in terms of the crimes, but just in terms of how did this whole thing start, right? How did this whole thing start? Who was in lead? And it's really, she's saying they both were. They tricked each other so well. Lori was tricking Chad and Chad was tricking Lori. And that I have to say, from what we've seen in those text messages, I didn't have an opinion on that one way or the other until we got all those text messages at Lori's trial in Idaho. And it became very clear to me that like, I would say the same thing. They were tricking each other. Those text messages, point blank, they were both manipulating each other. 100%. And I think they both knew that as well. Like they were both aware of it. It was like really interesting to witness that in those text messages. So that's interesting. Candace says, I met people like this at a metaphysical meeting once. They were cheating on their spouses and justified it by saying they've been together for millennia. I didn't go. Yeah, that is wild. That's exactly what she's talking about here. All right.
It seems to me, though, that all along you were kind of at the back of your mind questioning, not blindly believing everything they said, but somewhat skeptical. Would that be an accurate?
Yeah. I mean, if you were to talk to Lori, she'd probably say I believed it.
Right.
But there's always a little bit of doubt because I know she also had doubt. And she, on occasion, 2 or 3 times said to me, if Chad is Satan, he sure is a good one.
Whoa.
So that tends to lead me to think that she was.
This is so interesting, right? We heard a lot about this from Julie Rowe on her interview last night. The whole thing, it's like, well, it can be light and dark at the same time, and the trickery and the false Satans and the false Jesuses, and it's just everything is opposite day at the same time. It's just very weird.
Because I know she also had doubt. And she, on occasion, 2 or 3 times said to me, if Chad is Satan, he sure is a good one. So that tends to lead me to think that she wasn't 100% convinced either.
That she may have doubted Chad too.
Yeah.
And she said, if Chad is a Satan, he sure is a good one.
Yeah.
Do you know, did she ever tell him that?
Not that I know of.
Or raise questions with him that
I don't know.
You don't know. You talked a little bit about Alex. What was he like with Zulema? Did you have much interaction with the two of them?
Just a little bit at the end, because they didn't know it. Well, they didn't get together until the very end. So they were just developing that friendship.
And you met Zulema at church.
Correct.
Okay. And what was Melanie Boudreau like?
She was, she's fun. I really love Melanie. We did have a special relationship. She loved me and I loved her. And so she seemed that she had a lot of strife going on in her life, and she was really worried about her family. And so we had conversations about what was going on to some level. I mean, I wasn't as involved with their conversations as Lori and Melanie were, but as far as I went, we just were a support of, to each other, I think.
Would it be fair to say that you, Chad, Lori, Melanie, Alex, Zulema, you six were kind of a close group of friends, kind of a tight-knit family in a way?
Yes.
So you all would spend a lot of time together. And during these meetups, over dinner or whatever, you talk about religious things, the mysteries of God, things like that.
Sometimes we didn't meet together as a group, like a close friendship group together very often.
And what a difference, though, right, between her demeanor and Julie Rowe. I mean, obviously. I just want to also say that it looks like they just started reading jury instructions. So again, they are expected to read the jury instructions for about an hour and then take an hour lunch break and then come back for closing arguments. So we're right on track here schedule-wise, because our plan is to continue delving into this Lori's Inner Circle, right? And then switching over to the jury instructions while they're on lunch break. And then we can go straight into closing arguments. So
often we met on a very rare occasion together, all of us. We more like saw each other here and there, or talked on the phone, or took a drive here together. But that kind of, like you would a friend. You don't always get together as a group, but yeah.
And was it always religious talk?
Pretty much, I would say so.
Not a lot of other talk about politics or the weather.
No, politics.
Sport.
Probably not politics and sports. No, I wouldn't even talk about that.
Sure, yeah.
because Chad brought politics up in his speech.
Gardening, whatever.
I would talk about gardening.
So it was mainly religious talk when you'd all get together.
Yeah.
September of 2019, Lori moves to Rexburg.
Right.
Did you know she was going to move? Did she talk with you about this before?
Yep. Well, she didn't decide until
Remember, this is
I think August, maybe.
And how did she break the news to you?
Well, she said that first she thought Chad would come to be with her in Arizona. And then she said, I think I changed my plans. I think I'm supposed to be up there. He says I'm supposed to be up there, but I need to get my own answer to find out if I'm supposed to be there, because she didn't really want to go there at first. And then she said, I was told, yes, I need to go. And she needed to be there by a certain time. And so she decided to go. And then she just told me that I need to go up there.
And at that time, you're seeing her every day with...
No, not every day at this point. It started to slow down when Charles passed away. I didn't see her as much. It started kind of tapering off in the end. And especially when she moved to Rexburg, it really tapered off because she was now... And then plus she had been to a few different places, Hawaii and Texas. And so, obviously I couldn't spend every day with her. So it started to taper down after she started moving more.
And before Charles passed, you're talking to her a lot. And is she telling you that she wants to get a divorce, or is she saying Charles is pushing this divorce on me?
She says that he wants to get it, but she does not want to. She doesn't want to go through another divorce again.
I want to get back to that in a minute. But in September, she moved. She tells you that she needs to go up there. And what was your reaction about Chad telling her she needs to come up there, knowing that Chad still has the wife and 5 kids?
Yeah, well, we talked about that. I'm like, isn't that going to be awkward? She was uncomfortable with it. She believed that Tammy was going to pass away, though, before she got up there. And that didn't happen. She didn't pass away before she got up there. And so I thought, I said, aren't you uncomfortable? Maybe she'll see you guys together. And
remember when Chad and Lori had that fight? We saw all this in their text communications. That was exactly it, because Lori was mad at Chad because she was like, we can't go out and be around each other in public or whatever. And she basically gave him that ultimatum. And then that's when she's like, they just had that whole, it was like teenagers. It was so funny. Anyway. Yeah.
I thought it was different, that she was going to be up there when Tammy was still alive.
And she told you, well, Tammy will die before I move up there.
Right.
So how was she going to die?
I heard a few times, maybe through a car accident, something like that.
So they thought Tammy would be in a car crash.
Yeah.
Would pass away. Then Lori would move up there, and then she could marry Chad.
Mm-hmm.
And when that didn't happen, she said, I've still got to go.
Yeah. Because, the other side of the veil she's talking to, she said, I need to be there by this date. And
she's communicating with
someone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So she moves up there. And from what I understand, she and Chad would walk around the track at BYU, Idaho,
Mhm.
holding hands, maybe kissing, just displaying, looking like a married
I
couple.
remember hearing this.
Well, she told me that they did walk around the track together. She
Right.
didn't tell me what they did or didn't do, but I did have an opportunity to walk with them. And then we walked around and looked at the different pictures. I'd never been there before, so I saw the pictures that were in the gymnasium, or, behind it where they have this beautiful.
Right. Interesting, because BYU, dude. Okay, BYU, Idaho. Chad talked a lot about that in his speech, and we listened to that last night, and it was weird because I was like, why is he talking about this so much? Do you guys remember when he kept talking about the 10 basketball courts? He brought it up several times, and it was like weird. Like, why are you talking about this so much? But anyway, this is where they would go. It sounds like this. It sounds like this is where Chad and Lori would go when she moved there and he was still with Tammy, or Tammy was still alive rather, so that they could go there and hold hands and walk around and no one would see them. That's what this sounds like to me. They'd walk around the track because that way they could hold hands and then, dude, wow.
Pictures. So we talked and we walked, and yeah, I was surprised. I'm like, aren't you worried that people are going to see you? And she says, well, Tammy doesn't come out a lot. She doesn't come over to this part a lot. So
There it is.
But they were openly affectionate.
yeah. And they said a lot of people that knew Chad didn't know what Tammy looked like because they didn't do a lot of the things together.
Did Chad ever talk about Tammy possibly?
So sad, right? It's so sad. It's like Tammy almost was like invisible to a lot of people. Like, you know, it's normal for people to have, like, if you're a couple, right, to have like different interests and you do different things, right? But for people to like, I mean, I really just get this feeling like she was almost invisible. And it's sort of like, it seems like she didn't want to be doing what Chad was doing, and I don't blame her. She made the right call. But I don't know. It's just, there's this, like, the way that this is discussed, it makes me feel sad. It makes me feel like she wasn't. Makes me feel like she was living as a ghost even before she was murdered, basically.
Those beautiful pictures. So we talked and we walked, and yeah, I was surprised. I'm like, aren't you worried that people are going to see you? And she says, well, Tammy doesn't come out a lot. She doesn't come over to this part a lot. So.
But they were openly affectionate.
Yeah. And they said a lot of people that knew Chad didn't know what Tammy looked like because they didn't do a lot of the things together.
Like,
Did Chad ever
didn't even know what she looked like.
Talk about Tammy possibly passing away?
I can't recall if he said it, but I know she did. He was very quiet most of the time. He let her do most of the talking.
How would you describe his personality at that time? Just
Reserved. Yeah, reserved. A little. Sometimes he came across not very confident.
Did you stay with Lori at that time when you went up to visit her?
Mm-hmm.
And were the kids there?
JJ was.
But Tylee was not.
Tylee was not.
Yeah.
Where was she?
I don't even know. I don't know that. I will be honest. I don't know that much about Chad's kids. I mean, I know there's different ages. I don't know. It's a good question because, I think some of them were around that age. And did they go to that college? BYU, Idaho. I would doubt that he would be doing that if he had kids that were there in college. But I mean, it's interesting. Also, where I went to school, like, you can't just go on the gym. Like, you have to be a student or faculty. Like, you have to have a card to swipe and get in. And like, the public can't just like go there and use the resources. So I don't know how Chad and Lori were walking the track at the university. But anyway.
Told she was at BYU.
BYU in Provo?
Idaho.
BYU in Idaho. Would that have been a normal answer? Like a normal, okay, that makes sense type thing?
Well, I knew that Tylee had had her GED that she got when she was 16 or 17. I'm not sure exactly the age. And so it could have been plausible, but it didn't feel like it. There was definitely question marks. It was question marks for me. It didn't feel real. It didn't feel like the truth. I didn't know what to say about it. I wouldn't assume that she had done something to her. So it was kind of, I don't know. It was unusual.
But you didn't question her?
I didn't question it.
Was JJ with you on the walks?
No.
Where was he?
He was at home.
By himself?
His uncle was watching him.
Alex.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So JJ's home with Alex, but there's no sign of Tylee.
Correct.
And how long did you stay with Lori though? Was it for a week?
So Thursday to a Monday morning.
I'm assuming Tylee never called her. She never called Tylee.
She didn't even talk about her.
Never spoke about Tylee. Mm-hmm. Did she speak at all about JJ?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, he was all around us and we were talking about him quite a bit, actually.
What did she say?
As I arrived on the Thursday, she had said that he had turned into a zombie the day before I got there. And she was pointing out behaviors of his, like, look how he's doing this. That's unusual. Or look how he's doing that. And she was trying to create a uncertainty in me about what I saw his behavior. Like, what do you call that? Like a
Doubt.
A doubt. And I was looking at him and I thought, well, I don't know. He kind of looks like JJ to me.
Yeah, right.
Hyper and angry one minute and kind of chill or crying the next minute. Like, that's how his behaviors always were around me. I don't know if they were always like that, but that's how I noticed him when I was around both of them. And she just gave me a few scenarios of different things he would say. That sounded a little unusual. I didn't hear him say it, but she'd share things like he said this or he said that.
Had she talked about zombies before?
Mm-hmm.
And what did she tell you before JJ? What did she teach you about zombies and believe in zombies?
So the first person, as we all know, is Charles, was considered one. And that was brought to Lori's attention by Chad on the phone call. I was in her house when that phone call came in. And he described to her that Charles was no longer Charles, that this unclean spirit that was friends with Charles on the earth, when they used to be friends, had now passed on. And now he is this unclean spirit on the earth roaming around. And now he's attached himself to Charles. And now he has entered his body and taken over it. So he's not really Charles anymore. He's now this guy named Ned Snyder. And so it was when she told me, and she seemed blown out by it. I could tell she was like, that is really different. And she told me, and I thought, that is very unusual. It was just, because Chad had this influence on people because he had visionary experience. He could see things. At least he said, he portrays that he did. But I do believe that when you think somebody can see things or have visionary experiences about things, you tend to kind of believe them more than the average person. Because, if you ask me, I'd say, I don't see anything. So you wouldn't take my
I don't know. The average person, you guys, what do y'all think? If I heard someone say that, I would believe them less than an average person. That's just me, though.
Of you, or my opinion.
Exactly.
But if you had somebody that was really good at having visionary, because he often said that it was like,
he's not the only one that knew, right, Candace? That's the thing, that all these people that were their friends in their little the inner circle, right? They all knew this. They all heard about those, at the very least as it pertains to Charles, and some of them heard about it as it pertained to the kids. So, and all of them have said in their interviews like that they thought dark or zombie, they didn't think that they were going to actually kill them, right? I mean, and I understand, here's the thing, I understand why one would think that, because to think that someone would actually kill people over this is crazy, right? However, some people witnessed more disturbing and maybe red flaggy type of stuff than other people in the inner circle. And one of those people would be Melanie Gibb right here. She knew more than anybody. And anyway, yeah.
The veil was open when he had his near-death experiences. So he often said that veil is open all the time. So he had this way of seeing things that Lori and I didn't have that.
Remember, Julie Rowe said that the veil is not open all the time.
That we didn't have that gift of seeing. But I do have come to understand that that gift has been manipulated by the adversary. And so
by Satan.
Absolutely.
She told him.
Lucifer got into it, right? The adversary. And again, that's the same language Julie Rowe called it adversary. Remember when she said she's attacked by the demons physically? She called it adversary.
Of this.
She did.
And you're saying Lori even felt uncomfortable with that information that Chad had told her?
In the first day, I'll say the first day that she was trying to absorb it, I knew it was new for her.
And Chad's the one that called Lori and
Absolutely.
said, an evil spirit has attached himself to Charles.
That's right.
Named Ned.
That's right.
Any idea where that name came from?
I don't know how he got his information, other than she would say he would often sit in his portal and receive revelation about people.
In his portal, so the closet.
So he's sitting in the portal most likely and received that. And he's telling Lori,
or Satan.
Charles has this evil spirit. He's a zombie.
I'm not sure if they used that word in the beginning.
Okay.
They didn't use that word right away. They probably said that someone has taken over his body named this Ned Snyder.
She tells him, he becomes worried, actually goes before a court and says she needs to have a mental, psychological evaluation.
Correct.
Did you go with her to that evaluation?
I did.
And what was that like?
They received her and she said, she passed with flying colors and she got out quickly. And I waited on the outside for her. And then Tylee is actually the one that picked us up from there.
And when you say passed with flying colors, do you know what they did? Was it just an exam where she filled out a questionnaire or she met with a doctor?
They went in the back room and they just talked to her about all kinds of stuff and asked her all kinds of questions. She didn't tell me in detail all the things I probably didn't want to know. But yeah, she seemed that she wasn't evaluated as mentally ill. So they said that she's like, oh, you're fine. We know that you're not mentally ill. I mean, that's what she told me that they said to her. So,
Right.
Do you think she was honest with them and in her religious beliefs, or did she lie and give them the answers they wanted to hear?
I don't know. I don't know what they asked her. I should have asked her that, but I didn't.
So she gets out of there.
Mhm.
And is that when the whole incident with her purse happened?
Shortly after.
And tell me
Day.
about that. She
First day.
accused Charles of stealing her purse from or the car, right?
Correct. Right. So she went to drop off JG at the school that he goes to. He was out of town. So his truck was moved from the airport. And so when he came back from his flight, there was no truck. And so then I don't know how he, got around or anything. Maybe he called a friend. I don't know what he did. And then I got to remember the details of this. I know she had JJ. She dropped him off at school. And then he came to the school, and then he opened her car door, took her purse, and then took off. And then she got in the car, and she didn't see him. I don't believe she saw him. And then she's like, her purse is missing.
As all of these things are happening, there's a lot of bizarre incidents. Did you ever think, what is going on here? How can there be this much drama in one person?
It was a lot of drama. And I would ask them, like, why do these things keep happening to you? Because I have never been around so much drama in my life. I'm kind of a chill person. And so it just seemed like there was one drama after another drama, and it never ended. And so I just thought, wow, this person, I used to say to her, why is everybody in your life turning into zombies? Like, why is everybody after you? Like, why?
A valid question that maybe you should have put a little bit more thought into. Like, let's listen to that one again.
It seemed like there was one drama after another drama, and it never ended. And so I just thought, wow, this person, I used to say to her, why is everybody in your life turning into zombies? Like, why is everybody after you?
There it is, right? Glad you can be here. Kimmy, remind me, where are you joining us from? I'm trying to remember if you're in the US or in another country.
Be like, why? I don't understand. And she would say, well, it's because, Satan really hates me, and I'm because of my exaltation on the level that I'm exalted to.
Ohio,
they're coming straight after me.
Thank you.
So
I forgot Ohio. Right. Thank you.
Anyone that would disagree with her or cause her any sort of problem would become a zombie?
Pretty much. Or either considered to be dark. They're a little bit different, but that's another discussion.
Yeah. From what I understand, Lori knew how many zombies were in every state.
Yeah.
But she got that
and she could tell who was a zombie and who wasn't.
Well, not their name. Like, she couldn't know the whole world's name, so she would just have a number. Chad would give her, like, they would. I guess he would receive revelation on. Okay, there's this many. So it was their commission, though, to get rid of all the zombies before, tribulations came upon us. That was their goal.
And how would they get rid of the zombies?
Through some kind of prayer that they would do, which they believed was effective, because they'd go back and, check in the portal to how many died, and the number would come up, 10,000 died or whatever. But there was no way of knowing it was real. Does that make sense? I mean, you have to say, does that make sense, Nate? I know.
So let me get this straight.
Wow.
They're saying there's 10,000 zombies in Idaho. Go into the portal, say the prayer, come out and say, oh, we got rid of 1,000 of them.
Something like that.
Let's talk a little bit about Charles, and then we'll get back to September when you got to the house. Because from what I understand, Lori received a revelation that Charles was supposed to die in an accident on his way home from Texas.
Correct.
He didn't die. So what was her reaction at that point?
Well, I asked her, I'm like, why didn't he die? You were told he was supposed to die. Why didn't he die?
Right.
And she said, well, I think she went to Chad and asked, because I don't think she knew the answer to that. And so he let her know that the accident that was supposed to happen didn't, because of people's choices. So when things didn't go according to plan or according to a timing, it was only because of agency, and it would change. Oh, it's because somebody changed their agency. Very inconsistent.
And
that's that whole thing, right? You have to be able to make good on your culty promises. I think for some places it is a holiday. For example, in Massachusetts, Twiz, the courts are closed, for example, for today.
The night before Charles died, didn't she call Alex and say, come and stay with me? Do you know? Mm-hmm. She did.
Yeah.
And then the next day, Alex shot Charles. What do you think happened there?
I didn't know about it till like 4 days after it happened. She called me and she said, hey, did you see the news? I'm like, I don't watch the news.
Wait a second. Your best friend did not tell you for 4 days that
Right.
her husband had been shot and killed.
Correct. I found out through her, though. She did call me and let me know. And she said, have you not heard and watched the news? I said, I don't watch the news. And she said, Charles was shot. And I'm like, what? And so tell me what happened.
Wow.
And anyway, so I got to visit with her for a while, and she gave me the rendition that she gave the police. It sounded, what I've heard, it sounds like the same thing as, he came over. And I, the question that I had that part of me was like, well, why is he coming to get you and kill you? Like, I don't understand why Charles wants to kill you.
She told you Charles showed up to kill her.
That was his way. He was coming down from Texas.
Different story.
To kill her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why she had called Alex the night before to come over to the house. And that he shot Charles in self-defense.
Correct.
I don't know why.
You knew, though, that she had told you months earlier.
Why Arizona didn't call her? Because this is the second big thing so far, just from this one interview. And again, we've got her law enforcement interviews as well, but even just going off of today, as we are approaching closing arguments from this one interview, there's been plenty of stuff they could have used, but of the things that I've heard today in this interview that are like, that didn't come in at this trial. Like they didn't have like testimony that would have been different from what they already had for Arizona trial. So far, we had Melanie Gibb saying earlier in this interview, point blank, that all of the shit that Chad and Lori were peddling, that she's never seen in any Christian religion, right? And we know Lori made that a big point, that she was trying to be like, oh, it's normal, right? And then this other thing here, that Lori's initial story, right, to her was that Charles was coming there to kill her. That's completely different. So second huge thing that I don't know why they didn't call her.
Earlier that Charles was possessed of a zombie.
Correct.
So did you think, well, there's more here?
Right, because if he's coming down, that's why I'm like, well, what, like as a person that would perceive the public wouldn't.
Her testimony in Idaho, though, she was on the stand for hours. I mean, they used her. She was a huge part of that trial, both trials. So I don't know.
Perceive him as a zombie, right? Like, what kind of reason could he give anybody for coming down to kill her? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so she just said, well, they're after me. And I said, well, why? She said, well, for insurance. Like, I have $3 million of insurance on my head. And I'm like, really?
She said she had $3 million of insurance on her head.
Mm-hmm.
Did she ever talk to you about Charles's insurance?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What did she say?
She said that he had, I think, about $1 million. And that she knew when he passed away that she thought she'd get the money.
So she talked about how when Charles dies, I'm going to get $1 million.
I don't know if she was 100% sure, because she thought maybe possibly it could have been switched from her to Kay.
Interesting.
So she wasn't sure if she was really going to get it or not.
But it was something she was thinking about and talking about.
Yeah, she did know about it.
And then when she found out it had been switched to Kay, what was that conversation like?
Well, she wasn't overjoyed about it. And she's like, oh, Kay has the money now. But she also believed that Kay was a zombie as well. So
actually,
she just believed that they were all against her. That was her belief system. As time passed, she's like, I'll get something from you. When a spouse dies, you get Medicare, I think, something like
some
that.
sort of benefit.
Yeah, and he was
the name for Kay's zombie. Does anybody remember the name for Kay's zombie? I'll probably think of it when I'm trying to.
older than her, so
So
she knew that she could get something still, so that she wasn't completely left without anything.
And she brought that up, that she would get money.
Yeah, because I was like, what are you going to do? How are you going to take, the typical things that you talk about when people pass away, like how are you going to provide for yourself?
We heard that she was also getting money as a single mom, money from Tylee and JJ, because JJ had disabilities.
So I know Tylee received money from her father's death. And yeah, I think so. I think JJ did too. I don't remember talking about that too often.
But we figured it out, and it was around $6,000 a month, tax-free, that she got between the three.
Yeah, I think she mentioned something like she could get that much amount. Something sounds familiar.
What was your thought when you heard all of this talk about zombies?
I did question it. I mean, all of us did. I mean, I sat and talked to Alex about that a few weeks before he passed away. I'm like, I'm not too sure about this zombie thing. And he goes, I 100% believe it.
He said he 100% believed it.
Yes. So Alex really did believe.
Do you think that when he shot Charles, that was in his mind, that
Yeah.
Charles is a zombie,
Yeah.
and I must get rid of him?
Yeah, because he really felt to protect his sister. That was his duty.
To protect his sister.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time you get up to Rexburg in September, this zombie talk has become normal, or at least you've heard it before.
Correct.
And so let's pick up where we were a minute ago with JJ. She tells you, right when you get there, JJ's a zombie?
Correct.
And starts to point out things that she believed had zombified him.
Right.
And you're thinking, as an outsider, what?
I'm looking at him and trying to discern. And it looks normal to me. I couldn't tell. So I was like, there was a lot of doubt there, obviously. I mean, it's hard to believe that completely. I don't ever even believe that Lori completely ever believed it.
You don't?
I think she, like when you want to believe something sometimes and you listen to people tell you, like maybe she was listening to Chad, or maybe because of why it was happening, sometimes you really want to believe stuff just because you want the outcome is much what you're desiring to have. And so, yeah, I don't know if she I think she believed it to a certain level. I'll just say that, but I don't know. I'm not confident that she 100% believed it.
It sounds to me that Chad was kind of calling the shots.
She would say, he's so much better at getting revelation than me. So I used.
Interesting. I'm going to back up a second. I just wanted to say, I just was double checking. They're about halfway through jury instructions as expected. Again, with the 3-hour time zone difference, but also the half-hour court delay, they have about 30 more minutes of jury instructions before they go for lunch for an hour, and then they start closing arguments. Again, the plan is when they switch over to lunch, we're going to switch over to that and do jury instructions while they do lunch, and then that's the smart way to do it. We'll go right into closing arguments from there. So,
yeah, I don't know if she. I think she believed it to a certain level. I'll just say that, but I don't know. I'm not confident that she 100% believed it.
It sounds to me that Chad was kind of calling the shots.
She would say, he's so much better at getting revelation than me. So I used to get a lot, but I rely upon him a lot more now. So she trusted his.
I think there's an edit there. That's why I wanted to back it up. I think there's an edit there. I wonder if they had to edit this because she said something that could have been problematic, like, legally speaking. Let me see.
Me that Chad was kind of calling the shots.
She would say, he's so much better.
It sounds like there might be an edit there, which is, again, I'm just pointing it out because I just, it was noticeable. And I feel like a lot of this, there isn't a lot of noticeable edits, if maybe there aren't edits at all.
Better at getting revelation than me. So I used to get a lot, but I rely upon him a lot more now. So she trusted his because she was not considered a visionary, right? So he would tell her, these people, whoever was around her, these people are doing this, they're doing that, they're dark or they're zombie or whatever. He was the one that she would call and ask those questions. She said she wasn't very good at getting the answers.
Do you think Chad told her that JJ had become a zombie?
I think so. Yeah.
So she tells you all these things. You're kind of like, he looks normal to me. Looks like normal JJ.
Yeah.
Did it worry you at all that, oh no, look what happened when Charles became a zombie? Something might happen to him?
Right.
I didn't think she would do that because that's her boy. We had actually a talking about this. She goes, well, I need to, it's time for JJ to, I don't know how she worded it, but it was something to the effect, it's time for, he's in the way of our mission. So we need to send him to Kay's house. That was kind of like the idea is what can we do? And so we talked about Kay and we talked about some of her family.
He's in the way of our mission. She said that. It's like we all knew that was what was like maybe being thought. You guys, my backyard falcon is back. For anyone who hasn't heard, I have a backyard falcon that visits my backyard like every 5 to 6 months. The falcon is back, guys. I'll see if I can get a picture. Oh my God. Oh, how cute. So cute. But this is what I was going to say is this is the first time I've heard somebody that I can think of in this inner circle actually say this point blank. Oh my God, the yellow claws are so cute.
It's time for JJ to, I don't know how she worded it, but it was something to the effect, it's time for, he's in the way of our mission. So we need to send him to Kay's house. That was kind of like the idea is what can we do? And so we talked about Kay and we talked about some of her family members that could actually take him on. And so we talked about, what that conversation would be like with Kay. And she wasn't sure if Kay would really receive him. And so we talked about just different ideas about, him going there. And so that was the plan that I knew of is he's going to Kay's house. She told me that. I know that from what I saw in one of the video clippings that she also told a neighbor that as well. And so that's what I believe was going to happen to him. So I left thinking that that's where he was going as Kay's for sure. I didn't doubt that.
So as her friend, you're saying, okay, he's a zombie. He's in the way of your mission. She said that. So you guys came up with a plan of why don't we let Kay take care of him or someone in Kay's family? Yeah. Had you dealt with Kay before?
I met her briefly, but I didn't interact with her.
Okay.
It was like, hi, how are you? I'm Melanie. That was about it.
So even though Lori had an issue with Kay, she was willing that day at least to say, yeah, we'll send JJ to Kay.
Correct.
You leave Rexburg.
That's right.
Thinking JJ's going to go to Kay's house.
That's right.
You never saw Tylee the whole weekend.
Correct.
Because she was at college, allegedly. What happens from there?
This is where there's a big turn in my life. This is when it hits the fan. This is the part that I hate talking about.
Yeah.
This was hard for me. I'm sure I talked to her a few times on the phone. She did express that he went to Kay's house. Okay. So I don't know when she told me, but I would say within a short period of time after I left.
She called and said he's a case.
Right. And she said, oh, yeah, we met up in the airport and she received him and he's going to go stay. I mean, she gave me the whole story. So I just, I believed it. And it's about Thanksgiving and everything changed. I thought he was safe. And I get a call from Chad 2 days before Thanksgiving. I still feel emotional about it. I said, Melanie, it's Chad. When the police call, don't pick up the phone. And my heart just dropped. I was so confused. I'm like, what? He says, yeah, the police are over at Lori's house checking on JJ. And I'm like, JJ's not with Kate? No. My heart dropped deeper. And I just knew something was wrong, but I didn't know. I didn't understand. Like, when you believe your friends are good people, you couldn't believe that they could do something like that.
What was Chad's demeanor like on the phone? Was he stoic? What was he like?
He was very nervous.
He was nervous.
He was very scared. He did not sound himself. Very unsure, very quivery almost. Yeah, it was a hard moment.
So that call comes completely out of the blue.
Out of the blue. Wasn't expecting that at all.
He says, don't pick up the phone when the police call. Mm-hmm. He's scared. He's nervous. Mm-hmm. He says, they're going to call you because they're at Lori's house.
And she's going to tell them that JJ's with you.
She's going to tell the cops that JJ's with you in Arizona.
No, I was in Utah at the time.
You were in Utah.
Yeah.
First of all, that's a bombshell. That's just thrown.
I can't even describe how I felt.
Yeah.
They put me in a very awkward situation.
Were you able to even question him, or was your mind just?
I was questioning in my mind, but verbally, there was nothing coming out really. I did say, why? She said, well, Kay is trying to kidnap him. And I said, how do you know that? Well, through emails. You know, the emails. I said, I have not read your emails. What do they say? She said, Kay had mentioned, it's not like I'm going to kidnap JJ or anything. And I did think to myself, that doesn't sound like a threat.
How soon after did Lori then call?
I can't recall, but it was soon after.
Soon after. And what does she say?
She sounded like everything was wonderful and great. She had an upbeat voice, and I was like, wow, she's positive. And it gave me a little hope that, hey, maybe, it's not what I'm thinking the worst.
What did she say?
She said, hey, everything's fine. Everything's okay. And I can't quote exactly all the things I said. So she led me to believe that everything was fine, and that, that JJ was, I'm trying to remember how she worded it, that she was protecting JJ, something to the fact that they were not just Kay, but it felt like many people were after him. And so she was trying to protect him. That's what she told me. But I've talked to the police before. I was like, when you get a gut feeling, that's real, right? And they're like, yeah, you got to go on gut instinct.
And what was your gut feeling?
If something was terribly wrong. It just stayed in there for a long time, that gut feeling. It did not feel comfortable. Something was telling me something's off here. I wanted to believe her. I didn't want to think that she would do anything like that. I really, really wanted to believe her.
What did she ask you to do?
She asked me to tell the police that JJ was with me, and that when I went, because I was going to go and drive down to Arizona.
Where it really does take a turn, right? Where they ask her to lie. This is crazy. Lori and Chad, for anyone who doesn't know this part, ask her to lie and say that JJ was with her when the police inquire, and to make up the story about them even going to the movies and all this stuff. It is crazy. And there's even a bit about having her take a picture. Like, they ask her to take a picture at a movie theater of like some random kids to try to be like, oh, look, like there's JJ playing or something like that. I'm sure she'll bring it up. It's crazy.
For Thanksgiving, and that he was going to go with me, which I didn't know any of this, right? It's all new to me. That she had made it sound like we had arranged it or something. But anyway, he was going to go down to Arizona with me. And she was going to come down there later and pick him up. So that was a foreign idea to me. I'd never heard of that before. So it was I can't even tell you how uncomfortable, after I get to Arizona and everything. I was talking to Alex because I wanted to meet with him. And he goes, I cannot believe she threw you under the bus like that.
So Alex came to your defense.
And I said, I can't believe she did either. I said, I can't believe she said that. That was not smart.
Tell me about what she asked you to do at the movie theater.
So she said, I've told the police that you were at Frozen 2 with JJ, and to get your cell phone out and just take a picture of random kids running around to make it look like you had them with you. And I was thinking to myself, no, I don't make stuff up like that. I don't do that. So I'm just in shock still. I really, really was in a shock type of. It's just, everybody's listening. Everybody has different.
Here's the thing. What that says to me is just think about for Lori and Chad, how much power and control and confidence in their own abilities to assess their own power and control over other people they must have had to even ask someone to do this. Think about that. Think about from their perspective that they thought they had the audacity to think they could ask somebody to do this. With all of the suspicious circumstances, nobody's seen JJ in a long time, and she already has heard them say he's a zombie, he's dark, and all this, and she knows what happens. And it's like, And then they ask this, and the where it just goes to the next level is this bit, like the movie theater. Like this is to try to fake proof of life. Like that's like they're asking her to commit crimes, like, and the only reason they would ask that is because they think she's going to do it without threatening her. It's not like she's being paid. It's not like paying somebody or threatening them. It's like literally just because they ask her to, she'll do it. Isn't that wild?
Told the police that you were Frozen 2 with Jake and everything.
Oh, yeah,
I was talking to Alex
Frozen 2, right.
because I wanted to meet with him. And he goes, I cannot believe she threw you under the bus like that.
So Alex came to your defense.
And I said, I can't believe she did either. I said, I can't believe she said that. I don't, that was not smart.
Tell me about what she asked you to do at the movie theater.
So she said, I've told the police that you were Frozen 2 with JJ, and to get your cell phone out and just take a picture of random kids running around and make it look like you had them with you. And I was thinking to myself, nah, I don't make stuff up like that. I don't do that. So I just
unbelievable.
I'm just in shock still. I really, really was in a shock type of. It's just, everybody's listening. Everybody has different opinions, what they're going to think about all this, right? But in that moment, I really did not know what to say.
And you were
I
in the right frame of mind.
I understand being shocked and speechless and not knowing what to say, because that's insane that someone would ask you to do that. But the next move is law enforcement, police.
Question her.
That's
right. Wasn't.
And so you hang up that call. Did she say anything else other than go to the movie theater, take pictures of random kids, and talk about the Arizona plan?
I know that at one point we talked about her going on a trip with Chad's children to California. She might have mentioned it during that time, or I called her shortly after that when I was driving down to Arizona. It was between that conversation and that, I can't recall, but that they were going to go on a family vacation and that they were just going with the kids, or his kids.
How quickly did the police call?
Within half an hour to an hour. After thinking and pondering and talking to a really good friend, I'm like, there's something off. And I admitted, I said, I'm very, very concerned about this zombie idea. I really don't believe it. And my friend said, I don't think it's true either. Then we talked till 5 o'clock in the morning. I mean, we talked about everything, the belief structure and all these different things. We talked about all kinds of things about these doctrines. We talked about many things and how they did not fit the pattern that the scriptures teach. I often think about when Jesus Christ was on the earth, he healed people, he cast out evil spirits. He did not kill people. And if they did have an unclean spirit, he was able to get rid of it. And those people were okay afterwards. There was no pattern of this behavior. He was always sharing where they were inclusive.
It's worrying to me that this isn't the first time this has happened with these people. It's troubling to me that the way that they assess whether someone's behaviors and actions are appropriate or not. For example, killing people, right? It's troubling to me that the way that many of these folks in this group here assess that isn't by checking, like, I don't know, the law. It's by checking the Book of Mormon or the Bible. That's troubling, right? Like, oh, is it okay to murder? Oh, well, Jesus says it. No. Murder not okay. Murder not okay. Ugh. And if you consult the law, there are examples of when murder, or whatever, I guess technically wouldn't be murder, but when, for example, like self-defense, right? There's different levels of homicide, right? And there's times where the law provides that it is allowed, right? And it is an affirmative defense. And it's not a crime, right? We know how difficult that is for people with self-defense cases to, prove that. But anyway, it does happen. And so this is just very troubling. You guys see what I mean? Like, let me play this again. Welcome, James. Happy to see you. Meg is probably browsing, if I had to guess. / looking at houses with big waterfalls. Let us know if you find any others like that, Meg.
Many things and how they did not fit the pattern that the scriptures teach. I often think about when Jesus Christ was on the earth, he healed people, he cast out evil spirits. He did not kill people. And if they did have an unclean spirit, he was able to get rid of it. And those people were okay afterwards.
Why are we consulting the Bible, though, and not the law?
No pattern of this behavior. He was always sharing where they were inclusive and hiding. That does not walk on a path that is light. So darkness is always done in secretive. And I came to understand that. I'm like, this is actually it has been very hush hush. And that's not how God works. You know, the mysteries of God, which they were always trying to unfold, are about bringing people to Jesus Christ. That's what the mysteries are there. Part of them are about that. They were not bringing that. That was not what was happening. It was not leading people to Christ. It was taking people away from him. Or maybe they thought they had this pretend relationship with him. And it led to people dying. That does not sound like that scripture talks about God does not work in darkness. You don't have to be running and hiding when you're transparent and doing the right thing. You don't have to. When you're telling the truth, you have nothing to worry about. So
again, legally speaking, that's just not true.
One of the feelings that I did want to share to many people listening is that there are many people other than Chad that believe these teachings of many lives or multiple probations within our own church or either close groups that are affiliated. And I want you to decide, as people that believe this, does having this information make you a better person? Does it make you loyal to your spouse? Does it make you feel like you're better than other people? Because of this information, I'll just say it this way, Nate. If this idea of multiple probations had not been introduced, nobody would have ever died.
That is interesting, isn't it?
Because they would have never thought they were married before.
Wow.
This is dangerous doctrine.
Wow.
Because this is not how he works. He works on a pattern. I am the same yesterday, today, and forever. He does not make exceptions to the rule. He has no respecter of persons. And when we want things, we do things that are not always the best. All of us do on this planet. And the thing that's interesting is we've all been.
This is very, very interesting. And I just actually got goosebumps from this because this is huge. Because the multiple probations, this came up in the Arizona trial, guys. Y'all remember Lori cross-examining and trying to get people to say that multiple probations is talked about in other religious texts and whatnot, right? And I don't even remember what their answers were because the whole thing was just such a shit show. And it was like she wanted to get that point across. She should have brought in, and she should have had a case that she brought in an expert to talk about it, right? Anyway, but the multiple probations we heard Julie Rowe talk about last night. This is still going on. There are people like Julie Rowe and Eric Smith, and there's others that are still doing this thing. But this is really interesting. She lays it out, dude, here of why that is the root. And I think this is really important for people that are, I think it's important in understanding where this all started for them, but also for people who are in the LDS realm or exposed to these types of teachings. Hopefully they will see this and take this as a warning. So
you feel like you're better than other people?
Glenn, welcome. What does what mean? Multiple probations? Is that what you're asking?
Because of this information, I'll just say it this way, Nate. If this idea of multiple probations had not been introduced, nobody would have ever died. Because they would have never thought they were married before. This is dangerous doctrine. Because this is not how he works. He works on a pattern. I am the same yesterday, today.
So the reason this is especially okay, so in case anyone's like, what's the difference between this and like reincarnation, say, right? Or like past lives, say. There's some similarities, but there's a difference. And I'll explain to you how I understand it as it pertains to this. So the prior probations and past probations is specific to the LDS fringe groups. That's the word that they use as probations, multiple probations, prior probations, past, but yeah, multiple probations. So the context here is there's their own religious element to it, where being sealed in the temple is like a whole thing, right? And like, they have like, for example, there's other groups that might believe in reincarnation or past lives, whatever, as it pertains to individuals. But that's about, that's pretty much where it might kind of start and stop. The difference here with LDS is that it's hearing you with other people. It's kind of a lot of twin flames overlap there, right? So it's like your multiple probations is like the way that they did this with people is they were like, oh, here's who you were in a past life. And all of them were biblical for you. What they were doing was this. They were saying that people in a past life were, first of all, they were some sort of biblical apostle or religious figure or whatever. Like they were all one of these people, right? That are known in the LDS doctrine or in the Book of Mormon. And they like, that's who you were in a past life. So what does that do? That makes the person feel special. It makes them feel like they have special powers, makes them feel like they have special gifts. It gives a sense of religious purpose to this finding that Chad makes up or whatever. That's step one. But the second one is they also were married previously to someone else. And so they're saying, oh, you were married. So like, that's the whole thing with Chad and Lori. That was how they justified, in my opinion, their affair from the get-go, from day one. When Lori meets Chad at that Preparing People convention in St. George, Utah, they're leaving that convention. And on the drive back, this testimony came out in Lori's Idaho trial, I believe, in the drive back, because there's like a whole group of them in the car. And Lori's literally saying, oh yeah, Chad told me that we were married in a past life. It's like, that's literally what they're saying, like in a prior probation. And the way that he says that is like, oh, in a prior probation, previous probation, like we were James and Elena or whatever. Not James and Elena. I forget which names he uses. They have so many fucking nicknames, dude. It's just insane. But basically, and depending on who you ask and what the day was, Chad changes it up, right? To where people have different names and different relations. But point being, right from the get-go, he tells Lori, oh, well, we had a prior probation and we were these biblical figures, and we were married. And do you see how then you can use that to justify then having an affair with your current, in reality, with your actual spouse, like with another person who's actually alive? It's so creepy. Welcome, Angel. Happy to see you. I tend to agree, Gwennon. I tend to agree. I do tend to agree with that. I have a lot of thoughts on that for organized religion. Love Trey Parker, Matt Stone. Their very first thing, by the way, before the Book of Mormon and before South Park, was Cannibal the Musical. So for those of you guys who've seen The Room, which is a handful of y'all here in the chat, the Cannibal the Musical is like a B movie, but it's a B movie musical written by the creators of South Park, and it's making fun of Mormonism and cannibalism, and it is amazing. Also something we should watch. Got it, Gwennon. Got it. Roger that. You've seen Cannibal the Musical? That is amazing. Nobody's seen that. That is amazing. Oh my God. Spadoinkle. I haven't seen it in a long ass time. I used to be able to quote that entire movie. Oh my God. Yes. Dude, I can't believe you've seen that. Literally, I mean, really, it was just me and my music major friends that used to watch that. I've never met anyone else that's seen it. That is amazing. Oh my God. Dude, and the songs though, hold on. Oh yeah, That's All I'm Asking For. That was a good one. Oh yeah, the Trapper song was a good one. Let's Build a Snowman. That was a good one. I'm just looking at the songs here. I haven't seen this in so long though. Oh my God. It's so good. It's so good. Oh, I wonder if I have that. I bet I might have that on my external hard drive. Maybe we can watch that at some point. But anyway, definitely agree. And the other thing is, it's actually really brilliant from a music major standpoint, or, because they get really nerdy. They get really nerdy into the music theory in a couple of those songs, and it is amazing. Hannibal. We're talking about Cannibal the Musical. Hannibal, the show, is also great. Very different type of show than what we're talking about. With what's his face, that dude that was awesome. I'll have to look. I'll have to go.
And forever. He does not make exceptions to the rule. He has no respecter of persons. And when we want things, we do things that are not always the best. All of us do on this planet. And the thing that's interesting is we've all been deceived to some level. Everybody. So this is a world to learn truth and error. I just got to experience something at a very different level. So I got to see something, what I would call a secret combination, unfold in front of me. And I got to see it with my own eyes. Now, I didn't see people die or anything like that, but I got to see the workings of it. This is what this is.
And it sounds like that call from Lori and Chad and the police, that was kind of your awakening.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
After that long talk with your friend till 5 a.m, when you went through everything Chad had taught you,
right,
and all of that you said, this is wrong, and you called the police, and is that when you told them everything you knew?
Oh yeah, I told them everything, just like I'm talking to you. I just let it out. And the interesting thing is that everything I share with them is documented, right? Was before anything came out on the news. So people can say, well, Melanie learned this from other things, maybe. Oh no, Melanie didn't.
This was back in December.
This is back in December, the early part of December, before the first release, the press release, because we talked about the dates to make sure, you know, I was, and I was accurate, and I knew that I was, but I just wanted to make sure. And I said, look, this is stuff I know. So when I go to the police and share all these things about multiple patients, they were married before, people or zombies and things like that, they were not surprised when they were looking at me.
Welcome back.
They were like,
the police weren't.
and I was like this, like, it was hard to say it. I couldn't even say the word zombie when I first talked to them. It was just too painful to say it because I'm like, oh, this is so jacked up. And yet they go, we've heard stuff like this. You know, it's okay. We've heard all kinds of stuff coming. You know, we've been police for a long time. We've heard a lot.
And so you knew at that point that this was foolish, and you were embarrassed.
Yeah, absolutely. I said, I'm gullible.
And the reason that you want to make it clear that it's not like you picked all this up over the past few weeks. You knew this and said this back in December.
Oh, yeah.
Before any of this came out.
Absolutely. And I was on her team, right? Not on the opposition's team.
Team
so
Lori.
I wasn't, you know what I mean? If we were going to call them teams, I wasn't affiliated with Charles or anybody he was affiliated with. I was only affiliated with this small group of friends. And when I shared everything I did, it was the same things you could read on those court documents that Charles presented, which I didn't know all that stuff was on there, you know, because they started exposing that on the news.
So what she's saying is when she started talking about everything she knew about the zombies and the nicknames and stuff, she didn't know that there were all these court documents. And I'm guessing part of it is going to be the body cam, right, with Charles. She didn't know about that. Well, I think what she's saying here is that all of it matched up. That what Charles had said to the law enforcement and whatnot, and like it all matched up with what she was saying.
So the stories, you know, for all those that do believe in Chad and love him, and I love him too, and I know his family loves him, but I knew about these things before the news released it, and it is documented. So I'm only here to share the truth because of those that passed away, and that justice needs to be served. My hope is that they will look into their hearts and start to repent of the things and confess the things they did.
Chad and Lori.
But it's hard to do that when if you're Lori, think about this, and my heart breaks for her. She's got to admit that these people are dead, and it was because of their teachings and their ideas that they had these things happen. It's hard to admit that. You would have to admit that you actually had something to do with the death of your family. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? And so it's hard.
Children.
So it would be hard to say my belief systems are false, because then she would have to say, yeah, this happened. I do feel sorrow for everybody involved, both sides, because everybody's hurting from this. She's in the jail now. She doesn't get to be with Chad, who she loves. That's what she wanted so badly. And now she can't even be with him. It was a fatal attraction that led to their separation and people passing away. It's a tragic story.
One of the people we haven't talked about is Tammy. How did you learn that Tammy had died?
Someone texted me, a friend, and not any, person that was socially close, but just a friend.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. That's actually a good breaking point. Here's what I'm going to do. Let me put this on normal speed. Let me back it up a second. So, I think for the next movie night in Discord, it'll be not movie, it'll be TV show. It'll be Curb Your Enthusiasm. So the HBO show. Bye, James. So they're about to start talking about Tammy. I'm going to pause it right here. Because I've already got that on my computer. First, that'd be one of the main reasons. But actually a legitimate good show, not a B movie or a B whatever. But really funny. Larry David. We've talked about it before. Anyway, but what we're going to do at this juncture is we're going to transfer on over into it should redirect you guys through Lori's portal into the live stream where we're going to now, they're at lunch, right? They're at lunch. We're going to watch the jury instructions, and that should take us right into closing arguments. And then on verdict watch, we will come back to this as well as myriad other videos I have ready to go for all these people in the inner circle, as it were. So, but for right meow, I'm going to redirect you guys. I'll see y'all in just a second. Love you guys. And here's the outro.